Hello everyone and welcome back to the LTL Mandarin School YouTube channel. My name is Campbell and I'm currently on day 7 of a quarantine in China. Now the reason I'm making this video is because I want to share with you my personal experience of quarantine. Things such as getting here, what's in my bag, I'll give you a tour of the room, and I'll tell you a few things I do and don't like. Now it's important to know that everyone's quarantine experience is going to be different. In fact, one of my colleagues, Katie, has made a quarantine video herself, link in the description, and I'll also put it up here on the screen. And finally, at the end of this video, I'm gonna give you my top 3 tips for surviving quarantine in China. All right, let's jump into the room tour. So when I first arrived, pretty much the first thing I saw was this really lovely bed where I'd be sleeping. And then you can see on the right hand side, got a TV and a desk, somewhere to sit, a second desk, and then this is my view. It's actually quite a lovely evening in Tianjin. And then I'll just bring the camera back around. So there's the bed from another angle. You can see here I've got a phone to call reception, kettle, then there are some coat hangers here and a mirror to check myself out, but not going anywhere, so don't need that. And then on the left hand side is the bathroom, so let me show you that. So that is the sink, there's some toothbrushes there, hairdryer. For the shower, you've actually got a couple of options, and then there's just some shampoo and some body wash, and then up here is where I keep my towels, and then that is the toilet. One thing I do really like about this one, which I know some of my friends didn't have, is this is actually filtered drinking water. So you can see there is a filter there. So pretty much I don't need to call reception every time asking for new bottled water when I want it. I can pretty much drink how much water I like. So yeah, that is the room. Next, I want to talk to you a little bit about my experience of coming here to China. Now, as a disclaimer, I want to say that of course this is going to be different for everyone depending on where you're coming from and the current rules that are in place. So make sure you check for the latest updates on your China Embassy's website. So at the point of time when I was flying, what was required of me was to have a COVID test within 48 hours of departing for my flight. These test results were then emailed to me, and I then needed to submit them immediately to the China Embassy website. Basically what I had to do was create a profile on the website, and that profile gave me a red QR code, and once the test results were accepted as being negative, it then turns green, and that QR code will only be green for a 48-hour window. Getting to the airport, I had no problems, and the line was quite short because there weren't too many passengers on the plane. When I arrived at the airport, there was a very short queue for check-in because not many people are flying at this time. I know, however, Katie had the exact opposite experience when she was flying. She said there were too many people and it was causing delays with flights. So you still want to get to the airport as early as possible. One of the things that really sticks out for me for this flight in particular was the fact that about half the passengers were wearing full hazmat suits, so head to toe were completely covered. However, the only stipulation by the airlines was to cover your mouth with a face mask, so that's what I did along with about the other half of the passengers, and there were no problems there. And then before we could actually leave the check-in area, there were 2 QR codes which needed to be scanned with forms filled out. I think these had to do with departure and entry in China. Then once you've landed in China, there are a few more steps you need to go through at the airport. I'll go through them now. So the first one was a temperature screening where they basically wanted us to walk through one by one to check our temperature. Then they had all these rows of computers set up where we talked to a health official to answer some questions about whether we've come into contact with anyone with COVID in the last 2 weeks or so. It seemed the main thing they wanted to know was which countries we've been to in the last month. Then we got the COVID test, so a nasal swab as well as a prick on the finger. They are testing blood now. And then after that, it's just the normal customs that you would be used to and baggage collection. After you get your bags, there's almost nowhere else to go except onto a bus. That bus will take you immediately to your quarantine. Currently, you have absolutely zero choice in your quarantine stay. They will take you straight there and there'll be no messing around. So that's it, pretty much all the steps between departing and arriving in your quarantine room. So on either side of me here, you can see the bags I took with me to China. This was a carry-on bag, which I was allowed to take on the plane. These I put below the plane. You can see I had this smaller bag, which I've had for quite a while, but this was actually a new bag, which I purchased specifically for this trip to China. Now, a couple of things I want to say about this. Firstly, be really careful of your weight in these bags. I was actually over by 8 kilos, and that was with additional kilos purchased on top of my flight ticket. I really wish I had a set of scales beforehand to weigh them, to know exactly how much I was bringing, to know that I was over and I could have purchased more, opposed to buying more at the airport, which is more expensive. The second thing that is worth mentioning, you'll notice these two bags here have sort of a hard coating to them. Now, why would this be important? Well, when we got off the plane, all of our bags got sprayed with a chemical substance for obvious reasons. And I'm really glad that I had this hard coated material because it basically smelt like chlorine had been poured all over our bags. In fact, the chemical probably was chlorine. So I've actually wiped these bags down with a wet towel and I can still slightly smell it on my bags, but you could actually see when all the bags were being sprayed that the fabric bags were clearly absorbing this liquid, this chemical. So I'm sure those bags are going to smell like that for a very long time, if not forever. Whereas a couple of wipe downs on these kind of bags and I'm sure the smell will go away a lot faster. All right, let's take a look inside these things. I guess the first and most obvious thing to go through is all of my clothes. Now keep in mind two things. Firstly, it is currently winter in China, so it is very cold, particularly up north. And the second thing is that I actually do live in China, so I might have packed a little bit more than the average traveler. If you want to find out a little bit more about the weather in China, I'll leave a very helpful link to an article which we wrote in the description section below. So let's get into it. The first and most obvious thing, like I said, it is winter in China, so I did buy a very nice coat from Decathlon for this trip. Now, if you are coming to China during winter, there is no question that a nice thick coat is going to be in your luggage. On that note, here are a few more things. Thin sweater, a slightly thicker sweater, and a sweater I stole off my dad before leaving. Next is the long pants. I might have gone a little bit overboard. I have 1, 2, 3 pairs of long pants. These are track pants. I'm currently wearing track pants, and I actually have a third pair of track pants which I rolled up by the door because there was cold air coming in. So I have a third pair of tracky pants slash door stopper. Next would be my shirts. Now, again, I live in China. This is staying with me for a long time. This is definitely way too many shirts if I was only staying for a week or two, but pretty much 1, 2, 3, and 11, 12. 12 shirts. Way too many, but I do like my shirts. Oh, and look at that, I just found another shirt. 13 shirts. Again, totally inappropriate if you're coming to China for a short period of time, especially in the winter. But I am Australian, so this is practically like a uniform to me. Are all of my shorts slash board shorts. 2, 6, 8, 9. Actually, not as many as I thought. Underwear, socks, kind of obvious, should be in everyone's suitcase. Up next, a very essential item for a Chinese winter. I am talking, of course, about thermals. Now, I learnt this the hard way when I first came to China. I actually came in the summer, but I stayed so long that I ended up being in China in the winter. And I remember stepping out one day, and even though I had all the long pants and I had a nice jumper and a nice jacket, there was just a chill that went through to the bone. And the only solution for this is to buy yourself some thermals. So I've got with me this time a couple of thermal shirts and 2 pairs of thermal bottoms. Up next, I have some just nice shirts for this way. Some nice shirts for when I want to go out, maybe have a nice meal when I get let out of quarantine. I don't think most travelers would have this many. It's only that I'm coming back home. These are shirts that I would have in my wardrobe under normal circumstances. So maybe a few too many for the average traveler, but that's just what's in my suitcase. Shoes should be kind of obvious. You're not going to be getting on the plane without wearing a pair in the first place. Got some nice shoes here. You might notice these aren't exactly winter shoes. I did actually pack some thick socks. I find I'm actually okay just wearing thick socks and a pair of sneakers when I'm in China, but I do know a lot of people would prefer thicker shoes to get through the winter. And then of course, no Australian is going anywhere without their lucky flip-flops. Now the final article of clothing I have in my suitcase are these things. Now, I might have gone a little bit overboard purchasing 5, but like I said, I'm going to be in China for quite a while. And this is a really cool product. It is a piece of fabric that, no, it's not a blindfold, can go around your neck just like this, and then can come over your face like this. So this is just a really cool mask in a sense, which is reusable and you can wash it. And I have a couple of thin ones here, which are going to be great in the summer, and I have a couple of winter ones here. So it kind of doubles up as a face mask as well as a scarf to just give your face that little extra layer of protection. Moving on, these are all the different food and beverages that I brought along in my suitcase. First up is a box of cereal, which I'm really glad I packed now that I've seen the breakfast that is served here in quarantine. I'm going to share with you shortly all the meals that are being served here, but needless to say, this is one item I'm very happy I packed. Now, of course, a box of cereal wasn't going to be much help to me without milk, so I decided to purchase these little containers of milk, pretty much enough to have one serving every day while I'm here. I wasn't actually anticipating this, but I'm really glad to have a bottle of water with me. Like I said, there is filtered water coming out of the tap, which I think is quite unusual for China in general. But when I came to the room, all they gave me were tiny paper cups. So it is kind of nice to have a water bottle on hand to fill it up and drink from this, opposed to going to the bathroom for a tiny cup of water every time I wanted to drink. Up next is what once was a full loaf of bread, now just the wrapping. But this was really nice to make myself some peanut butter sandwiches for the first 3 days. Obviously bread isn't going to last the full 14 days, but that was kind of a nice thing to have for the first 3 days of quarantine. Then naturally when the bread is gone, I think it's kind of nice that I've got some Vita Wheats here, basically some biscuits that won't go off, that will go well with peanut butter. Of course, I'm not opposed to eating it straight from the jar either. I also originally packed with me 5 apples. I kind of figured that would last me for the first week. As you can see, I'm now down to 3, but I'm actually given a piece of fruit every day for lunch anyway, so maybe didn't need to pack these, but these are particularly nice apples, so I thought, why not bring them along? Coffee, kind of an obvious pack for me, otherwise no work was going to get done during my quarantine. So an essential item for me, maybe not for everyone, but it is nice to have some ground coffee. Up next are just some nuts. So I've got peanuts, cashews, and some trail mix. The next 2 items are probably my biggest regret in the fact that I didn't bring more. So I've got here what I thought was a pretty big block of chocolate, but as you can see here, I've pretty much nearly eaten half of it, and that's just by eating 1 row a day. I think I didn't count that out well enough. I think I would have appreciated a little bit more chocolate whilst I was here. And up next I have just some lollies here. Again, got the packet, but they were pretty much gone within the first 3 days. Up next are some 2-minute noodles. Now, these probably weren't an essential pack. I only bought these out of fear of perhaps not enjoying the meals here. But the truth is, the meals here are actually quite filling and I am enjoying them. So, not necessary, but I am glad that I packed them just for that peace of mind.
These here are just some muesli bars that I scattered around my 2 suitcases. I kind of figured they were a food item that would travel well, and if I get a bit snacky, it's great to have a dozen or so muesli bars. These here are just some packets of tea. I don't actually drink tea normally, but it is kind of nice. Quarantine is quite boring, as you can imagine, and tea is kind of a nice thing to have from time to time. So I've got some nighttime tea that I'm drinking before bed and some other tea that I'm having around lunchtime. So yeah, I threw in about 20 packets of tea and I'm kind of enjoying it. And the last item I packed was a bottle of bourbon. Perhaps not an essential item, but I'm glad I packed it because it is kind of nice to have a drink at the end of the week. Moving on, let's now talk about the non-food and non-clothing items I packed in my suitcase. Now, I think the first thing I packed was this French press. Like I said, I do love my coffee. This has also been great for making tea and some 2-minute noodles if I'm feeling a bit hungry. But like I said, I actually haven't been having that many 2-minute noodles because the meals here are quite filling. So mostly just for the coffee and the tea. Next item was a mug for the coffee and the tea. And next I packed some plastic utensils and a bowl. Now I have been using the utensils for the food that have been delivered, and the bowl has been great for breakfast in the morning. The next 2 items in front of me, I actually got this idea off Katie and her video where she said she wished she had some dishwashing liquid and a sponge to clean all of her utensils and her coffee maker and all that sort of jazz. So obviously this isn't going to be in your hotel room, and I'm glad I packed it. This here in front of me is my toiletries bag. Now I really do like this bag because it rolls out, and I have with me a hook so I'm able to hang this on the bathroom door. Now of course everyone's toiletries bag is going to be different. I did pack in mine some staple items like toothpaste, some nail clippers, toothbrush, even a beard trimmer. So of course pack your toiletries bag like you would any other trip. And of course don't forget to pack your preferred shampoo and conditioner. I didn't have room in my toiletries bag, so I put it in this plastic carry-on because I'm always afraid any liquids are going to explode in my bag. On a similar note to hygiene, you're also going to want to pack a couple of deodorants. China is notoriously hard for finding deodorant, so buy a couple of your favorites and be sure to pack them because you're probably not going to be able to buy them when you get out. In this bag I've brought with me all of my drugs, and I'm talking about painkillers, cold and flu medicine, even antihistamines. Now the reason that I have a bag dedicated to this is because you're not going to find your home brand medications in China. So if you have a preferred painkiller, if you have a preferred cold and flu medicine, be sure to preemptively pack enough for however long you're going to be in China. I like to bring as much as I can with me. I find I don't end up using what I pack in these bags, but it does give me peace of mind to know when I do have a headache, when I do have a cold, I'm going to be taking the same products that I'm used to taking at home. These next 2 items I'm sure most people won't forget to pack. I brought with me, of course, my computer, as well as a hard drive. I do use this hard drive for work, but it's also nice to know I have a backup of movies and TV shows, just in case my VPN isn't working and I'm not able to access Netflix. Now, of course, your computer is not going to be much help to you if you forget things such as your computer charger, some headphones. I've even got a phone charger here, and then probably one of the most important pieces that brings it all together, a universal adapter so you can charge your devices here in China. A few more things I packed were some disposable masks just in case. I also bought a face shield. I haven't even taken it out of the box yet, but you never know, this might come in handy when I leave quarantine. I also brought with me a few bars of soap, which I sure am glad I did that because the hotel only provided a handful of small soaps, which will definitely run out before the end of my time in here. And I've also been using this to clean my clothes and hang them out to dry. And then the last thing that's worth mentioning, this isn't for everyone, but I did pack with me some vitamins that I would normally take at home. Of course, you're not going to find your home brand preferred vitamins and minerals, and even if you do find them in China, they're going to be very expensive. So for me personally, I like taking zinc tablets, and so I knew I had to throw a bottle in my suitcase before I left. Now, these last few items are just some things I threw into my bag, knowing I would need it for my own sanity. I brought with me my Kindle. I even brought along a Sudoku book to keep my mind active, Don't forget a pen, that'll be important not just for the Sudoku book, but also for customs when you first arrive in China. You're not going to be wanting to ask people next to you if you can borrow their pens for obvious reasons. And I threw in a Rubik's Cube because what the hell. The last items I have with me should be pretty obvious to anyone coming to China. I have with me, of course, my phone, my wallet, my passport, and some money which I converted over to Chinese yuan. Now, one thing worth mentioning is when you do arrive to your quarantine, there's not going to be a normal check-in like you would any other hotel. They're going to want to get you into your hotel room as quickly as possible and settle the bill later. One thing I found was everyone was paying through WeChat or Alipay for their room. And I actually don't have enough money in my WeChat or Alipay to pay the bill. So I did message them saying, can I pay with cash? They said that's fine. Although for quarantine reasons, I can't actually physically give them that cash until the quarantine is over. Now, one thing you can do before you come is actually connect your credit card to Alipay so you can start using funds here in China. We actually have a very helpful video explaining how to do this. It should pop up on the screen right now, and I'll also leave a link in the description below. Now let's talk about the food in quarantine in China. It was made very clear to us on day one that we were not allowed to order outside food and drinks to the hotel. I think the reason for this is because a specialist catering company has been hired to cook all the meals and deliver them in a safe way. Safe in the sense that a person in a hazmat suit comes and delivers the food and takes away any garbage that we leave at the door. So everyone in the hotel gets a message saying the food has arrived, at which point you're allowed to open the door and collect the food. You'll basically get a plastic bag, and inside that plastic bag there'll be a piece of fruit and a container just like this one. Now in this container, pretty much in the large section here, you get some rice, and then there'll be 2 different types of vegetables and 2 different types of meat. Now I've been taking photos of these meals, so I'm going to put up on the screen now 3 different breakfasts that we've been served, 3 different lunches we've been served, and 3 different dinners. As you can see, it more or less is the same every single time. So don't expect too much variety in the meals, but having said that, I have been enjoying them. So this brings us to the end of the quarantine in China video, and nearly the end of quarantine for me here. In fact, it's day 13, and I'm very excited to get out tomorrow. As promised at the start of the video, here are my top 3 tips for surviving quarantine in China. My first piece of advice would be to keep your mind active, whether that's through work, study, or perhaps even a project that you can embark on over the 14 days. In fact, why not sign up to LTL's Flexi Classes and learn Chinese for 2 weeks? We offer a comprehensive Chinese course for all levels, and you can study whenever you like, hence the name Flexi Classes. I'll leave a link in the description to find out more. My second piece of advice would be to arrange as many phone calls as you can with family and friends. I'm not gonna lie, you are going to get down at certain points during your quarantine, but the best thing to do is remember that you are gonna get through this, time does pass, and there's no better way to lift your spirits than a chat with your friends and family. And my third piece of advice would be, when it comes to your entertainment in terms of books, movies and TV shows, is to not watch or read anything too serious. I think one thing that really helped for me was just watching some fantasy TV shows and some comedy movies, those kind of light-hearted things to distract yourself from the quarantine itself. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any additional questions, be sure to ask us in the comment section and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Better yet, if you want updates from LTL Mandarin School, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and you'll get all the latest and greatest coming out of China, Taiwan, and Singapore.